It was 3 a.m. and I was wide awake again, laying there after another bathroom trip, knowing that my 5 a.m. alarm was coming, and there was no way that I was waking up to work out. If you're in perimenopause and this sounds familiar, it's probably not your sleep routine. It's likely a blood sugar crash triggering a cortisol spike. And I was doing three things that were destroying my sleep. So, we're going to figure out which pattern is yours. And I don't want you to skip pattern three because it looks totally normal, but it's one of the biggest reasons that the sleep disruptions kept happening. So, let's start with the one that my doctor told me about first. So, the first thing was that I was under eating in the morning and I didn't even really realize it. When I walked into my functional medicine doctor's office, I was walking in and I was going in to get help with my tinnitus. But we started talking and having conversations, and I was so frustrated and told him about like my wake ups and what was happening. And he asked me if I was eating breakfast. And to be honest, I wasn't. He didn't sugarcoat it for me. He was just like, Nikki, you have got to eat 30 grams of protein within the first couple hours of waking up. And look, I'm not going to lie, I was skeptical, but I was like, okay, well, I may as well try it. And I didn't understand how breakfast would really help me fix these midnight, 3 a.m., whatever wake ups. In perimenopause, your body gets less forgiving. You can't run on fumes when you're in perimenopause. And if you undereat early, then you're starting to create that blood sugar roller coaster. And when you're creating that roller coaster, it shows up overnight as waking up, it's a racing mind, it's restless sleep. So, does that sound like you? Because if it sounds like you, then it's likely that you were having some of the same things that I was having. And so, if it sounds like you, then I want you to really start to think about breakfast. Because if your breakfast right now is basically coffee and maybe some of your kids' food, or you're like, oh, I'll just eat a protein bar on the way to work. And you might feel fine, but then you're like starving later in the day, or more like me, where you're like getting irritable mid morning and you couldn't focus. The first thing that you've got to do is start to fix your protein. Look, I know that there is so much out there around protein, protein this, protein that. You've got to get your protein. But a lot of people really don't understand the why. And it is because it helps keep your blood sugar stable so that your cortisol doesn't spike and drop all of the time. We want your cortisol to spike in the morning and slowly lower throughout the day. And what happens is a lot of us are not getting the right cortisol patterns. So it ends up spiking at the wrong times, like in the middle of the night when we're trying to sleep. Really focusing on getting protein at first thing in the morning is such a good way to combat a lot of that. And look, this was not something that was an easy fix for me. It was not an overnight fix for me. I had to work at it. And I started with a protein shake because at one point that was literally all I could stomach. And I was like, I don't have time for breakfast. I made all the excuses in the book. But then I really started feeling better and seeing the benefits of it. So it started making things easier for me. And so I would have a lot of times I would prepare overnight oats with protein in it. I would make sure that I would make a Greek yogurt parfait and add some berries. I would have eggs, but I will warn you, if you're not having something else with your eggs, 2 eggs is 12 grams of protein, and that's not enough, right? You need 30 grams. So you've got to have eggs and maybe some Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, or maybe you blend cottage cheese into your eggs. Sounds gross, but it's actually really good. But there are so many different ways that you can start to build the way that you get your protein in the morning that can be fun for you. And so sometimes I'll even put like leftover chicken inside of like a breakfast scramble because that's another simple and easy way to get my protein in the morning. But look, if your breakfast is mostly carbs like mine, so think bagel cream cheese or toast with peanut butter on it, you're setting yourself up to feel worse later. Look, you don't get extra points for making it till the afternoon just on caffeine. Trust me, I've tried. It doesn't work. And so I want you to drop a little emoji if breakfast right now is basically coffee and carbs for you, because I want to see who else kind of goes through the same thing and know that it wasn't just me. So the second pattern and the thing that I was doing was having coffee on an empty stomach. I know that I have talked about this before. And look, I am not taking your coffee away. Okay. I love my coffee, but I am just going to change the order of things. And I think that you'll find it to be very helpful. I used to be the coffee with a splash of coffee person, right? Like I would pour a bunch of creamer in, and it was my creamer, my my creamer was really more creamer than coffee, right? My coffee was really more creamer than coffee. But that was my breakfast. And then I discovered putting a scoop of my favorite protein powder in my coffee. And that was a huge game changer for me. And I'll link my favorite protein powder below, but it's just ingredients. And now I have fancy protein lattes and I can change the flavor every day. And I don't get sick of it, right? So one day I'll have like a peppermint mocha. Another day, especially in the winter, I'll make myself a gingerbread latte with French vanilla protein and homemade gingerbread spice. So there's so many different things that I can do. My favorite is a salted caramel latte, and it's literally just protein powder and coffee. And now I don't, have to even sweeten them anymore. I don't even put creamer. I don't even buy that stuff anymore because, well, that's a whole nother video. But what I didn't realize is that drinking coffee on an empty stomach was just spiking my stress hormones. And in perimenopause, your stress response gets a lot more noticeable because you're starting to feel jittery or anxious or you're starving later. And that instability actually goes through your night. And so this is you if you're shaky and anxious and you like right after you drink your cup of coffee, like 20 to 30 minutes after. Or if coffee kills your appetite and then you're not really eating until 11 a.m. Or maybe you don't eat until late morning and then you want a ton of snacks later in the day. So again, the fix is eat something with protein first and then have your coffee. So maybe that's, or eat your protein with your coffee, right? You can do the two together, but it's all the things that I talked about before and getting in your protein and then having your coffee. So if you want more of a full deep dive on this, I will link my coffee and perimenopause video at the end, but it's definitely something that I would take a further look on. But if coffee is your breakfast, your body is actually just going to act like it's under stress because it is, and you're not feeding it first. So once I fixed breakfast and I started eating before my coffee, then I thought I had it all figured out. But my doctor also asked me about pattern 3, which I'm going to tell you, and that was my biggest problem, and I didn't even really realize it. So, pattern number 3 was one that I'm not really proud about, but I know so many moms do, and that is skipping lunch because it looks normal. I mean, how many times have I sat at my desk and worked through lunch and I'd look up and it was 2 o'clock and I realized I hadn't eaten anything. And I've worked from home for 15 years. So when I had a corporate job, I would literally go out to my pantry, grab a handful of crackers, maybe some cheese, whatever I had, whatever I could find, and just call it a meal. I didn't stop working and I didn't like take a little break. I just worked through lunch. And I thought I was being really efficient, but really at the end of the day, I was just setting myself up for disaster because skipping lunch creates really long gaps and that leads to survival eating later at night. So maybe it's bigger portions or later eating, or, you don't have enough time in between when you eat and when you go to bed for that rest and digest phase. And then you're waking up at between 1 and 4 a.m. and you're like, why is this happening? So you're going to know this is you if you look up at 2 o'clock and you're like, oh crap, I have not eaten today. Or you're fine all day. And then at night, you're like eating everything in the pantry. Okay. Or your nights are really the only time you sit down. So food just becomes this like relaxation and exhale. And you're like, okay, I need to eat more. But here's the thing. This is your fix. Okay. Lunch. Lunch is going to also help you sleep. Okay. And look, it does not have to be Pinterest perfect, but a lot of times you can meal prep some lunch within 20 minutes. So you could make it easy, right? You could buy a rotisserie chicken and get a bag of salad and you're getting your protein, you're getting some fiber with your vegetables. And you can, make up a quick dressing. Or you could do a tuna, like pack of tuna and a little bit of mayonnaise, avocado oil mayonnaise for your healthy fat, and some edamame. And man, that's a powerhouse protein lunch. So look, skipping lunch doesn't make you like a hero, okay? It is going to just make you super frustrated later. So if you're looking at all of these different patterns and you're like, I am super overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. I don't know if I should start with breakfast or lunch or get my coffee, situation figured out. But that's what we work on inside of the collective. And it's real food. We talk about really real strategies for the life that you're living right now because so many moms are also feeling this too. But look, now you have seen all 3 patterns. And I'm curious, most of us are doing more than one. So let's figure out which type you are so you know kind of where to start. So, type A is maybe you're the hungry waker. So you wake up starving. The thing for you is going to be protein earlier and stop skipping lunch. Okay. Type B is going to be the wired worrier. And that is going to be like your brain is racing. Like you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, like, I'm going to solve everything right now. What you need to focus on is eating before your coffee and stabilizing your morning breakfast. Okay. Type C, hot flash waker. So, one of the things here is that you're going to just really want to make sure that you're stabilizing your blood sugar during the day to cool down your night sweats. And type D is the middle of the night peer. Okay. So, you're going to wake up in the middle of the night, you got to go to the bathroom. So for you, you are going to work on stabilizing your meals and reducing late night water. And then definitely don't check your phone like I used to do. So I am super curious to know which one is you right now or what is most common, right? So I want you to comment below just like one word. Okay. Are you hungry or wired? Or are you hot or are you peeing? Just type in one word. So I kind of have an understanding of who's struggling the most right now. And now that you know the type that you are, I want to talk a little bit about what your action plan looks like. I gave you a little sneak peek already. So for the next 3 days, here's what I want you to do. And this goes for all of you. I want you to have protein in the morning. Okay. Make sure you're getting some protein. And then I want you to eat before your coffee. So if that means that maybe the first thing that you're doing is you're going to try a protein latte instead of just a regular cup of coffee, great, let's do it. And then I want you to not skip lunch. I know it sounds a lot easier sometimes than it is, but if you really start to focus on those three things, protein in the morning, eating before your coffee, or having a fun protein latte, and not skipping lunch, then I want you to start to track your waking up. Okay. And once you've started doing these things, when you're waking up, I want you to understand what maybe you ignored that day. Okay. So here's what you can actually do tonight. Prep something for breakfast tonight. I alluded to it earlier, but one of my favorite things that I do to make mornings easier is I prep something the night before. And a lot of times that looks like overnight oats. And I use my favorite Just Ingredients French vanilla protein powder. Lately, I've been loving my homemade gingerbread spice mix, or I take a half a cup of raspberries and I smash them and I mix it all together. And so it takes less than 5 minutes. Put it together tonight, and tomorrow morning you have breakfast ready to go. So when I started really tracking this and doing this for more than a day, for at least 3 days, I started really sleeping through the night. And that was the first time that had happened in months. So I wasn't waking up between 1 and 4 to go to the bathroom, wasn't tossing and turning. I was actually sleeping. So don't just try this once and, decide that it doesn't work for you. I want you to really focus on it for 3 days. But if you want help troubleshooting your specific pattern, it's why I built the collective. And when you're doing this with someone else, you don't have to figure it out by yourself, especially in the middle of the night while everyone else is asleep. You get monthly support, simple food strategies, and real life accountability made for busy midlife moms, especially going through perimenopause. And if you want to learn more about drinking coffee on an empty stomach in perimenopause, because trust me, you're going to want to learn, then watch this video right here.